Hi everyone, Amanda Joy Ravenhill here. I'm the co-founder of Project Drawdown and the executive director of Buckminster Fuller Institute. And I'm so excited today to talk about a generous economy for Spaceship Earth and the opportunity that we all have to create this economy and this future that works for 100% of all life. You see here a visualization of the temperatures over the last 100 years, rising and rising. And I like to say pessimism is really a luxury of less urgent time. We are up against the wall. It is so touch and go right now. And as I was preparing for this presentation, I thought, wouldn't it be lovely to show the temperatures coming back down again and showing the amazing opportunity that we have to achieve drawdown and achieve this moment where temperatures begin to decline. And luckily, I was able to do this and kind of reverse this, this time lapse and allow us to see really what does it look like to reverse global warming. I think it's so critical that we are able to see and dream what we want to create in the world in order for that to happen. There's a cognitive bias called the availability cascade that says that the more we all have the same examples and same future available to us, it cascades into becoming reality. And so I think it's so critical that we have this in our mind's eyes. Temperatures coming up and then coming back down again in the lifetime of so many of us who are watching. And that's why we started Project Drawdown, was to give people this really felt sense of what does it look like to solve climate change, moving beyond just the solutions and into the possibility and being able to see the future that we all want to live into. Buckminster Fuller often talked about this moment in about 1975. And he said there was a threshold that humanity had just crossed, in which we have now the technological capability of taking care of everyone. He said, it is now highly feasible to take care of everybody on Earth at a higher standard of living than any have ever known. It no longer has to be you or me. Selfishness is unnecessary. War is obsolete. It is a matter of converting our high technology from weaponry to livingry. And so we're moving from this world of scarcity towards this world of generosity, an economy based on one in which I can only profit at someone else's expense, to one in which we can all profit together and have this win for all game dynamic. And as we solve climate change and as we mobilize all of our forms of capital in order to achieve drawdown, we can also have all of these beautiful cascading benefits that enable everyone on Earth to be taken care of at a higher standard of living than we can even imagine. Spaceship Earth, a term of Buckminster Fuller's, tells this story of how precious and vital our planet is. As you see here, it is chasing the sun as the sun orbits around our galactic core. We are very much traveling through space on a spaceship with this bubble of life that exists between the heat of our planet, which happens to be warm because we cooled just at the right time to have a magma core, and the icy cold of the outer atmosphere and the cold of space. That differential creates this life, and life creates the conditions for more life, which creates the conditions for more life, as Janine Benyus likes to say. And that's where we are in space, and where are we in time? We have survived, some of us, this year of the pandemic. This is a visualization of pollution over Italy, and seeing that the Earth has been able to take a breath. We've all been kind of sent to our rooms to think about what we've done. And now we're emerging from this time with this new opportunity to really see how can we all mobilize to not only solve climate, but solve many of the interdependent crises of which climate is just one surface problem. Buckminster liked to say, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. I get to hear this quote all the time. It's people's favorite, and I get to reflect on it quite a bit. And there's so much here, that was at the inception of when we started Project Drawdown. It's really an invitation to question how much we're fighting the existing system and fighting some of the entrenched interests versus kind of building this new opportunity, this new paradigm for people to step into out of desire. And I'd like to talk about that today as we give examples of this generous economy that we're all stepping into as we solve climate change. So Buckminster Fuller also often talked about the need to look at root causes. And we like to say at BFI, we need to dissolve the root causes so that we can solve the surface problems with more ease. And looking at climate as really a symptom, and climate change as a symptom of these larger root causes. I'd like to just give you a tour of some of the ones that we've been thinking about at BFI. The need to move away from separation from nature to this understanding of a reverence for the interdependence that fuels life, moving from money and politics and corruption to alternative governance systems, moving from narrow focus and reductionism into certain systems. There's a root cause of people having an avoidance for inner work that comes with a lot of modern culture, and moving towards attending to that trauma, moving from myopic thinking and quarterly profits into long-term thinking and shared value, and moving from, as we've seen a lot this year, othering and colonization to diversity and cultural abundance. We like to use cultural abundance at BFI because inclusion can often mean that there is someone that is included, including. And so we like to kind of sit from that state, we like to focus on potential over problems. So what is that potential that we're stepping into of a culturally abundant future? And finally, moving from scarcity to generosity, which is really what I want to focus on today. And I invite you all to kind of sit with these root causes and say, in all the interventions that you're a part of in the world, how can we be looking at these root causes and how can we weave those into our interventions so that we're not just looking at the surface, but really dealing with what's underneath, because climate change is really a manifestation of so many of these root causes. And if we don't solve them, then we're just going to have more and more problems down the pike. So this generous economy is firmly underway. We've seen a lot of these trends picking up steam, working from an ownership-based economy more towards a shared economy, saying access over ownership, moving from products to services. Some people also call that the caring economy, moving from a take-make-waste model of production to a circular economy in which we're really utilizing and making active that which is already in the economy. Moving from shareholders and competitors to stakeholders and cooperation, and finally from closed and proprietary information to more open source and transparent ways of understanding. And there's so many data points for each of these trends. And I think overall what we're seeing is kind of, like Buckminster Fuller said, we've crossed this threshold to having technological capability of taking care of everyone. And so he said it would take about 50 years from 1970 for the world to kind of catch up to that understanding, to move from scarcity to generosity. And that about 50 years in, which is right about now, it would feel like things were crumbling because that kind of underlying assumption of win-lose game dynamic would be crumbling away and the win for all game dynamic would be rising up. And so here we are in the midst of it. It's very much a state change. It's happening very quickly. It's non-linear. And I invite you all to pay attention to what's around you. Signs of a generous economy abound. And so we've created this network called Regenerosity of over 700 projects around the world who are regenerating, sorry, let's start that again. So we've started this project of over 700 regenerative projects around the world, and we've partnered with Lush Cosmetics and the UN Development Program Equator Prize in order to start to weave together this peer-to-peer learning platform and community, really acknowledging that everyone has something to offer, just different forms of capital. And while we are concentrating and resourcing financial capital to many of these groups, we also see it as a reciprocal relationship in which each of them has regenerative intelligence and other forms of capital, a lot of natural capital, to offer the wider community. And we were just honored to be able to propel these projects forward and learn from them and really be in a developmental process, engage everyone who wants to be part of Regenerosity in that same kind of educational developmental process. And this is all happening within the context of drawdown. So as you all know, drawdown is this point in which greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere peak and begin to decline, and temperatures decline afterwards. And I love this visualization. I love to just sit and breathe with it and breathe with the earth. This is the annual cycle of the earth breathing and having small drawdowns every year. And it shows us that it's possible, and the importance of land use and food and working with our local biomes in order to have a healthy planet and enable all of these beautiful cascading benefits that result when we just instigate a little bit. So much of the world right now has been scaling through the focus on centralization and simplification. But when you look at what nature does, it scales through complexity, increasing orders of this anti-entropic or syntropic, as Buckminster Fuller would call it, way of kind of coming together and having more and more decentralized nodes in the system. And it's so beautiful. I'm just so taken by life. And the more I learn about it, Janine Benyus, who is on the board of Drawdown, often talks about nature kind of being a beloved of hers, and how when you look at nature as your beloved, you just want to know more about it. And Jacques Cousteau always said, people protect what they love what they understand, and they understand what they're taught. And so I think it's so vital that each of us teach one another what we know about nature so that we can all understand it and love it and protect it more. So Regenerosity is deeply inspired by nature and this interdependence that fuels all of life. You pull one string and it touches the whole world. And it's this mutualism that requires this generous spirit of cooperation, of gifting, and results in abundance. And there's these nature-inspired principles that underpin regenerative development and likewise Regenerosity's strategy. And some of them are this idea of potential over problems, which is very much at the root of what started Project Drawdown, is looking at the potential of the future. When we first started out, at the time, 86% of news about climate was about the future that we don't want. And we said, let's step into that future that we do want so that we can create it. Another principle is this idea of diversity, creating resiliency. When you have a diversity of players, when you have a diversity of different species of corn or whatever it is, and it increases resiliency in the system. And as we know, climate change will be here, global warming will be here for at least another couple decades. So we need to be able to brace for that change. And another principle is promoting cascading benefits, which I'll get into in a bit, but it's essentially these virtuous positive cycles of value that are created and have these feedback loops of more and more value creation. Another principle is place inspiring strategy. So really looking at the essence of a place, what are the patterns there in the hydrology and the geology and the culture that can inspire the strategy, because there's unique genius all over the world. Move on to just a reminder for all of us to continue to look at the wider context. And this is a beautiful visualization from the Digital Universe Atlas. And it shows a whole digital twin of everything that we know of in the universe that we've actually marked. And so this is zooming out from Earth, seeing the moon's orbit, seeing our solar system and the orbits of the planet. A reminder for all of us to continue to zoom out and see the wider context so that we can better promote these cascading benefits. As we zoom out, we see the constellations in the night sky collapse around us, and our radio signature is our galaxy. And as we zoom out, all the galaxies that we have mapped so far, and all the way out to the very edge of the universe, to the cosmic radiation, light and Big Bang. So just a visualization for you to take. I find it's one that you can't unsee, and so it inspires me to just always think, okay, there's a bigger context here, whether it's temporal or geographic or other different spectrums. How can I zoom out and see the wider context? Because when we do zoom out, then we're better able to plan for cascading benefits. So in any interaction and in action, we're always going to have these secondary effects. And if we plan for them, they can be cascading benefits rather than these unintended negative consequences that we've seen so much in our current extractive society. And so this is a visualization of one of the solutions from Drawdown, women smallholder farmers, and this idea that then creates more nutrient-dense food, which can also increase income, which enables women to educate their children better, which enables them to invest in the community, and all those have these reinforcing feedback loops of value back. And it's across social, across ecological, across cultural, across financial, and many other forms of capital. You see in the background an ecological set of cascades where investing in smallholder farmers can increase carbon drawdown, which helps with healthy soil, which helps with climate resilience, water retention, biodiversity richness, and each of those then goes and supports, and there's way more arrows than I could possibly fit on the screen of all the different interactions with all of these, but essentially you can see that by doing one intervention, you can create this whole cascade of value and benefit. And I think the future and this generous economy really can be way closer than we can imagine because of this beautiful ability for these benefits to just cascade and continue to reinforce one another. And I think humanity is really in an identity crisis, and we haven't really seen or felt that we can be this beneficial keystone species. Buckminster Fuller often talked about we build all the right tools for the wrong reasons first. And so much of the space age and satellites was really around the Cold War. But now we're turning those satellites back on the Earth. This is this new instrument called JEDI, the Global Ecosystem Detection Instrument. And it's taking billions of photos over the next couple of years with LiDAR in order to see what the tree canopy is around the world. And so we'll have an idea of actually what does biomass look like around the world, and better able to do and implement and track a lot of the solutions from Drawdown, like agroforestry solutions and others in land use and food. And I'm just so excited this awakening that people are going through, what indigenous cultures and many ancient wisdom traditions have known for a long time, that we can live in right relationship, in reciprocity, and be these keystone species, and rather than the current identity, which is very much mired in, oh, we're Cancer, I don't know if we actually deserve to exist. So I invite you all to step into that identity shift as well. And invite you all to become a member of BFI. We are supporting these projects. We get together a lot. We have a new online course called Trim Tab Space Camp for people who want to be better astronauts on Spaceship Earth. That's starting in a couple of weeks. Invite you all to go to bfi.org and check it out. And I'll just finish again with this quote that I really think summarizes it all very well. Once again, it is now highly feasible to take care of everybody on Earth at a higher standard of living than any have ever known. It is no longer has to be you or me. Selfishness is unnecessary. War is obsolete. It is a matter of converting our high technology from weaponry to living. Thank you.